Hey everyone, my name's Leo and welcome to my channel. I make videos on university and productivity, and today I'll be giving a tour of and ranking several of the most popular study spots in University College London, also known as UCL, from worst to best. Each study spot I'll be going through will appear on the screen now, with timestamps if you'd like to skip to a particular part. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Just a quick disclaimer, I myself am not a UCL student. However, I am still able to access several of these places on the list, and that is because UCL is part of a larger body known as the University of London. In short, the University of London is a collegiate university which comprises 17 member institutions, many of which are world-famous teaching institutions in their own right, including UCL, King's College London, LSE, and many more. For most practical purposes, including the awarding of their own degrees, these member institutions operate on an independent basis, while still remaining part of the Federal University of London, which is where much of the confusion lies. For the purposes of this video though, all you need to know is that being a student at one of these 17 institutions gives you several perks, one of which is access to the libraries of many of the other colleges. This is great if you're in need of a study space closer to where you live, want to study with a friend from another constituent college, or simply just fancy a change in scene whilst revising for exams. You'll need to apply online to get an access card, which can be renewed every year, but do check the specific university's website for details as the process will differ slightly in each case. Finally, I should mention that most of the spaces in this video can be booked in advance via UCL's online booking system, which is released at 12 PM each day for up to 3 days in advance. Whilst not essential to do, it does guarantee you a space so long as you're quick enough, especially during the busier times of the year such as exam season. Anyways, onto the video. Our list begins with the Bartlett School of Architecture, and specifically the ground floor cafe right by the entrance. It should be noted that at the time of filming this video, the school was actually preparing for its annual summer showcase, which is why I can't show you what it would normally look like, but for reference here are a few pictures. This is by no means a bad place to study, with each place on this list offering its own unique perks. However, one of them has to take last place, and if we're ranking the cafe alone, then there isn't too much that makes this place stand out other than the ability to freely talk while sipping on some fairly decent coffee. This section is open to anybody from 7 AM until 10 PM during weekdays, and 9 AM to 8 PM on Saturdays, and 10 AM to 7 PM on Sundays, though a UCL student card is required to go further into the building. Note that this is not to be confused with the Bartlett Library, which is a small library located down the road from here, accessible to University of London visitors and UCL students alike. The number 6 spot on our list goes to the UCL Senate House Hub, located in the Senate House building just north of the British Museum, a short 5-minute walk away from UCL's main campus. The Senate House serves as the administrative centre of the University of London and houses its central academic bodies and activities. The 4th to 7th floors of the building give access to the Senate House Library, open to students of all University of London colleges through an online application. On the 3rd floor, UCL postgraduate students get special access to their own area consisting of 144 study spaces, known as the UCL Senate House Hub, open from 9 AM to 9 PM every weekday except Friday, where it closes earlier at 6:30 PM. On Saturdays, the hours are reduced to 9:45 AM to 5:30 PM, with the whole place being completely shut down on Sundays. Whilst it's a nice getaway for postgraduate students to be surrounded by like-minded individuals and has a variety of group workspaces, the architecture and aesthetics are rather outdated and bland, and the relatively small number of spaces may make it difficult to find a spot during the busier times of the year. Overall, it's not a bad spot for the occasional meeting, but there are plenty of better options coming up. The UCL School of Slavonic and East European Studies Library, often abbreviated to the SSEES Library, takes the number 5 spot on this list. A medium-sized library with a very unique design, the SSEES Library houses 176 spaces for UCL and University of London students alike, opening from 10 AM to 7 PM every weekday, and closing at 5 PM on Saturdays and completely shutting down for the whole day on Sundays. There are 4 floors to the building, including a basement, each of which hold extensive book collections on the study of Central and Eastern Europe, though users from any department are of course welcome to use the library's resources. Specifically, the following subject areas which can be found are displayed on screen now. To help new students navigate the vast amount of available resources, the library has created a self-guided tour which can be accessed from their website. As you can see, the library is designed with a transparent open space in its centre traversing through every floor, giving an almost modern open floor-like plan while still respecting its more classical design influences and maintaining distinct physical boundaries between each floor. It's a nice touch which adds a much needed sense of space to the otherwise narrow and densely packed floors. Other features of the library include 2 medium-sized computer clusters exclusively for UCL SSEES students, a microfilm reader for reading the library's many microform materials, including issues of many Eastern European newspapers, and an extensive archive collection of memoirs, newspaper cuttings, and photographs in the basement. The library's architecture and design is certainly one of the most fascinating across the whole of UCL, and if it weren't for the size of the library and the confined and restrictive feel of the space, I would probably be able to rank it even higher than number 5. The Science Library is next on the list, which, as the name suggests, houses collections on a wide variety of scientific subjects, ranging from engineering to medicine, with a full list on display on the screen now. The library may not look like much from the outside, but inside it actually holds 918 study spaces in total across 5 floors, making it the largest library on campus, which is also accessible to University of London visitors. The ground floor contains a large computer cluster, bookable group study pods, and even a cafe for a quick morning or afternoon pick-me-up. As a rather large library, it also has the added benefit of staying open 24 hours a day for the majority of the working week, closing at 9 PM on Saturdays, opening under the reduced hours of 11 AM to 9 PM on Sundays, before reopening again Monday morning at 8:45 AM. It is for this reason that you'll often find undergraduates and postgraduates alike here working away until the early hours of the morning on their soon-to-be-due coursework or thesis projects during term time. One of my favourite things about the Science Library is how meticulously organised it is, with similar subjects clustered together in regular arrangements and the desks being organised at appropriate positions relative to the bookshelves, which is a small but underrated aspect of the library that was probably designed on purpose to appeal to STEM students. As with the SSEES Library, a helpful self-guided tour can be found online to help you make the most of the library's resources and services. At the top on level 4, there is an area called the Research Grid, a modern study suite for UCL graduate students with both individual and group study pods. Whilst architecturally it's not as interesting as some of the other buildings on this list, the long opening hours and large study spaces are fantastic features of the Science Library and thus places it firmly in the middle of this list. We come on next to the main library of UCL, located in the centre of UCL's campus, which is one of the largest not only in terms of the number of study spaces, boasting a total of 625 spaces across 2 floors, but also in terms of book collections, as well as a nice grand spiral staircase to welcome you at the entrance. What's more, this magnificent location can be accessed through a University of London visitor card and is actually the place you go to collect your card once your application has been approved. The main library also has some of the longest opening hours of any space in UCL, typically being open during term time from 8:45 in the morning and not closing until midnight during weekdays, perfect for getting in some late night revision or coursework in the midst of looming deadlines. Weekend opening hours are reduced but still very reasonable, opening at 11 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. In terms of book collections, this library centres mainly around humanities and modern languages, with a full list of collections available on screen now. I would encourage anyone, however, not just those studying these subjects, to make full use of this space and its incredible architecture, plethora of computer clusters and small reading rooms for when you need the extra bit of focus, and overall studious and motivational atmosphere, as you are surrounded by some of the most beautiful bookcase-lined hallways on campus at every turn. It is easy to get lost wandering around this place for the first time, which is why UCL have helpfully created a detailed map and self-guided tour which can be accessed via their website and gone through at your own pace. This is certainly the nicest library and visitor accessible study space in UCL in my opinion, which is why it takes the number 3 spot on this list. Second place in our rankings goes to the Henry Morley building, named after a famous English academic of the 19th century. Tucked away in the corner of UCL's main campus and accessible only to UCL students, this building features 2 large social working spaces as well as 5 bookable group workrooms, making it perfect for those looking for a lesser known, more private spot to study while still being able to chat freely with friends. Whilst the first floor is reserved for staff only, the ground and second floors are excellent places to study, And the best part is you can even bring along your non-UCL friends, as there are no turnstiles and only one UCL card is required to access the building. The only downside is the fact that it's closed on weekends and is usually only open 8 AM to 8 PM on weekdays. Nonetheless, this is an overall fantastic place to study and deservedly takes number 2 spot on our list. We finally come to the last entry on our list, and for those of you familiar with UCL, this will come as no surprise to you. The Student Centre is my pick for the best place to study in UCL, an opinion no doubt shared by countless other students. Everything from the large number of study spaces, 641 to be precise, which is comparable to the main library, to the fact that it's the only place on campus open 24/7 for the majority of the year, even during holiday periods, makes this an amazing place to work and focus on your studies. As a result of its opening hours, this is no doubt a popular spot for students wishing to pull all-nighters, or at the very least work until the early hours of the morning. And to top it all off, they even have their own showering facilities designed with this exact purpose in mind. It's only accessible to UCL students, but the exclusivity just makes it all the better, as you'll be more likely to be able to claim a study spot in this popular space before they're all taken. And even if you're not a student from UCL, there are a few desks and spaces available to work on the ground floor which don't require card access. The architecture is modern and sleek looking, emulating an actual open floor office layout, unlike the SSEES building. From quiet study and computer rooms to group study spaces and even a cafe equipped with microwaves on the 3rd floor, there's something to suit your every academic need. Additionally, there's a rooftop terrace which gives you some nice views of the London city skyline and is a nice place to take a break and get some fresh air between your studies. One of the main downsides is that being such a well-known and central location, it can sometimes be difficult to find a space here, and the Wi-Fi in a few places such as the group study rooms isn't always the strongest. Plus, you can definitely find better coffee elsewhere than from the cafe. However, all in all, this is still undoubtedly the nicest place to study in all of UCL, which is why it takes top spot on our list. So that's all from me. I hope you found this tour and ranking of some of UCL's most popular study spots useful. If you'd like to see more content like this, then please consider subscribing, and do let me know down in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions for which university you'd like me to cover next. Bye for now.